Welcome back to Ithaca BJJ. Today, we're taking a look at those who are crushing it in their 40s. Folks who have given up the sofa for the mats. Let's get started. This first guy here is the Bomber, 43 years old, and one of the toughest guys in the room. The problem with the Bomber is he has a really bad habit of training while he's injured. And in every clip here, you're seeing him pretty injured and continuing to train. I wouldn't advise it, but somehow he has a way of pulling it off. What you'll notice here is that he's really good at distributing his weight and being heavy. Notice the placement of his head. Now Jaden, the blue belt on the bottom, does a good job keeping him off and then threatens him with that Kimura, which forces the Bomber to slow down and slightly change tactics. And Jaden was actually going for a slick Kimura back take, but the Bomber stopped him. Here again, the Bomber, he's injured, but even when he's injured, he's able to hit this awesome sweep. This here is Bryan. You've heard me talk about Bryan before. Bryan is 45 years old and one of my favorite training partners. Why? Well, because Bryan is one of the few people who practices stand-up with me, for one thing. And secondly, he goes out of his way to take care of his training partners. So we can always get in some really good rolls, some really good technique, and we never get hurt. Bryan is also really good at being heavy and distributing his weight. Here, he's playing around with Brandon. You saw Brandon featured in our white belt video where we talked about the 6 key skills of a good white belt. Here again, this is Bryan allowing Brandon to get some work in, get some reps in, and Brandon does not have to worry about getting hurt. By the way, Bryan is also an amazing acupuncturist. This guy's taken good care of me multiple times. Nice to have people like him on the mat. There he is, allowing Brandon to work, taking his time, and seeing how he's going to react to this triangle. As pointed out in the white belt video, Brandon does a pretty good job defending this attack. Now this here is Matt Knight. Matt Knight is 47 years old, and I like to think of Matt Knight as the anti-A-game guy. Now I say that because I have no idea what his A-game is. Unlike many of the other people in the gym, Matt Knight is not a big competitor. And when he comes in, the only thing I ever see him working on is things that he has trouble with. He says, Derek, I'm having trouble in this position. Let's work this spot. So he's always working his most difficult positions. He's not under pressure to win some tournament, so he focuses purely and strictly on getting better at Jiu Jitsu. And it really does pay off. But something I need to point out here is that, hey Matt, you need to deal with that grip on the lapel, dude. You're a purple belt. You got to get rid of that. And this is one of those positions he works on. Why? Because he has trouble in this position. I don't think I've ever seen this guy work an A-game. And it's one of the reasons that I love training with Matt. He's not trying to kill you. He's not trying to hammer you. He's just trying to fix whatever thing it is he's having trouble with at the moment. So there's no flash here. Just grueling repetition. And this here is John, 45 years old. He's our resident chiropractor. And he's the guy you see in most of the technique videos being used as the grappling dummy, getting crushed by Professor Matt as he demonstrates some type of pressure pass or some difficult submission. And he happens to work in the same office complex as Bryan. John is the chiropractor who has also taken good care of me on the mats. After he twists me up into a pretzel, he does some basic chiropractic adjustments to make me feel a little bit better and to not feel so bad for getting crushed. Thanks, John. And here we see John rolling with Jim, the 50-year-old brown belt we featured in the Crushing It in Your 50s video. And I love watching these two brown belts go at it. It's a masterclass in pressure and superior technique. And here's something here that you'll notice, that I notice a lot. See that guy over there in the corner? Yep, that's Professor Matt observing. He often does that. Sits back, observes everyone to check on their progress. Now Jim does something pretty interesting here. We see John going for this submission, and while filming this, I was pretty sure John had this locked in. Yet somehow, Jim, right there, finds his way out. Nice job. Now notice here, with John on Jim's back, he's pretty sticky. But Jim rolls out. And then here we go. John is right back to the back. Very sticky. Staying close to his opponent. We often see people get rolled off the back because they're not being sticky enough. Once you connect your chest to that back, you need to stay there. And this time, John sinks it in. Now this is Jerry, 43 years old. Between him and Bomber, they're the toughest guys on the mat. I haven't figured out which one is toughest yet. But Jerry's one of those guys who, before I can roll with him, I've got to get 2 or 3 warm-up rolls in. Because with this guy, it's all pressure all the time. I witnessed this guy in a tournament once. He was down by a few points, and he submitted his opponent with 15 to 20 seconds left. It was an epic victory. This guy just does not stop. It's high pressure all the time, with the constant threat of submissions. Notice how low he keeps his head and how heavy he keeps his upper body. This is a staple of Jerry's game. Very heavy, very patient, very deliberate. And this is something you'll notice with all the upper belts in this video. And a good white belt, as I pointed out in other videos. keeping that head low and themselves heavy. And this is James. James is 48, brown belt, very technical, very slick, constantly moving. And this guy has a wicked knee cut pass that I still haven't quite figured out. And he knows it. So every time he gets on top, he just smiles at me and goes for that knee cut pass because he knows he's going to hit it. James recently medaled also, I think in Florida. Don't be fooled, folks. These guys are in their 40s, but a lot of the guys that you're looking at, they've medaled in tournaments recently, including in the IBJJF. And James, for a small guy, he applies tremendous pressure and finesse. And there you have it, folks, crushing it in their 40s. Thanks again for joining Ithaca BJJ. And remember, it's never too late to get started. Remember to like and subscribe.